Welcome back to the Everything Property Podcast. Today we are interviewing a very special guest at a very special location. We are at the Bunker Gerringong, and I have with me today Neil Hipwell from FutureFit. Neil, welcome to the Everything Property Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, look, mate, first thing what I want to talk about is this house that we're at. We're at a corner block. We're overlooking the beach at Gerringong. For anyone that doesn't know, we're probably 20 minutes south of like your Shell Harbour, which is on that sort of Wollongong ring. Talk to me about the story about Bunker Gerringong. Started the Bunker brand for you guys, but also very successful, incredible house. We'll do some visuals as well. But how did this house and how did this sort of development come to be?
So my wife and I used to holiday here. We'll still do.
Yeah.
Living in Sydney, this was the perfect little hour and 15 minutes getaway to come down, surf, relax, get away from Sydney. It's like the perfect distance for that. It's probably the only place I know of in Australia that has such beautiful farmland that meets the ocean. It's just uninterrupted view. It's pristine. And it's always been a goal of ours to get a property here and have our own holiday home. I mean, originally it didn't have this, business mindset. It was more just, I want that, and I'll have to work out a way that I can afford that. And obviously not many people can afford just have a holiday house sitting there doing nothing. So that's where the business side of it came in. But yeah, it was on the market. I remember we were staying at the caravan park in a shitty little caravan.
Wow.
And didn't have much.
What year were you in? Where were we at in terms of...
It was 2017. My
Okay.
business was doing well. I had, 25, 30 staff. I had, 10 or 15 projects going. I was making money. I was doing a lot of building, doing my own developments. I was midway through a big triplex development and a townhouse development. So I was not in the best cash position. And then we walked up the street, and this particular block, we said, if this ever comes on the market, we should definitely have a crack at it.
Yeah.
And we walked up, and it was like a take two moment. We're like, is that a sign? Is that for sale? And we went, shit, let's call the agent. Oh, they're going to want too much. And there was a nervous phone call, and he's like, wanted a lot at the time. Doesn't sound like a lot now, but I think they wanted about 2.5 mil or around that figure. And a block of land, the bank was like, it was, a time where you couldn't really get funding on a block of land. More than you had to have 50% of your own cash, basically, because you had no asset there to rent out.
So vacant block of land, not even a house to start
Vacant
off with.
block, yeah.
And save on demo, but not good for lending.
Yeah, so, the lender knows that you're going to have to get some more cash to do a build. So they didn't really like it, and I struggled to get the money because I was midway through finishing a construction. Yeah. Anyway, it all came to part. I just basically negotiated, and it was the night before the election in 2017. I think it was 2017. The Labor was potentially getting in. It was going to stuff the market. They were saying a drop of potentially 20%. I think the agent had a call from the previous owner saying, just get it sold. He rang me and said, what will you pay? And I just said, I'll give you 1.7. That's all I've got. That's all I got. So I got it for 1.7, which now we'd be sitting on a 5 mil block. Like it'd be every bit of 5 mil to get a block like this. Maybe 6. And then obviously you've got to spend another 5 or 6 to get a house like this on it. So the replacement cost today is very different than what it was then. So I was very lucky to get that asset at that time for sure.
I think the lesson as well in that is same thing what happened at election time always, but also like COVID was a lot of people panicked. The media gets out there and says things are dropping 20, 30%. Builder and developer like yourself probably rubs his hands together and goes, perfect time to go buy some sites. But if you sort of listen to that media and get like dragged into it.
Oh, it's such a good, I get for people that don't watch the media. And I mean, I'm a bit of an idiot. Like I'm not that educated on a lot of things, which helps me a lot because I'm like, I'm not buying into that. I'm just doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, true.
And I have done that every time. And the same through COVID. I bought a lot of assets at that time. And I could see, I'm like, it's the flu. What's this thing everyone's getting caught up on? It's ridiculous. Like what's happening on TV, I know for sure is not really happening. And all the hospitals that are full and everything. I've got friends that work in a hospital. There's no one in there. Like it's just lies. And for me, I basically capitalized on that and bought a lot of property then as well. And that doubled in price.
But the 1.7 you offered for this, you were saying before talking offline, you didn't even have that to So
I didn't even know what I had. I just knew that I wanted the block, and I knew what it would be worth in the future. And I knew as soon as I looked at the site, I said, I'm going to build a bunker on that. I'm going to dig into that ground because I didn't want to block anyone's view. So going down underground is the best thing for all the neighbours because you're sinking majority of the house underground. You've got this, 3 meters above the ground that is obstructing anything, which is very minimal compared to the 8.5 you're allowed.
Yeah,
and
I just behind us that we're looking at doing this podcast would not have been a huge fan.
Yeah, they were pretty happy with the design because it's all sunk underground and it looks amazing. But I knew exactly what I wanted and what I wanted to achieve, and there's not many things around this area that are cutting edge architecture with a swimming pool on the roof, with lifts, big basement. All those things kind of not done in this area and not tested. So when we're looking at replacement costs, like there isn't anything at the time that was selling for near what I would need it to sell for if I was going to go that skits on the build.
Yeah, that's a massive risk.
A massive risk, yeah. So I just went, let's just get the site. I'll get this development I'm doing finished. I'll sell the development. Then I'll go and use that cash to get a nice house built. And that's what I did in the end. But yeah, it was a moment where I was like, I'm going to have to do some stuff to get some money really quick, which is doing commercial lending and all that stuff to try and make it happen. And I did what I had to do. I got the money, and then I obviously refinanced off other things and shuffled things around, so I wasn't paying a ton of interest. But yeah, sometimes you just got to jump on things. And,
I mean, as well, like for those that are listening purely on audio, and for me to describe this to you, we are on sort of the top of a hill that slopes down towards the beach. We're on a corner block. On the other side of the corner block, on the other side of the hill that's also sloping down, is a council reserve. So you're not going to be built out to your east, I believe. You have the entire beach view. And I have followed you for a long time, and I've seen all the video and stuff for this house. But being here in the flesh, I can say none of the photos have done that view justice of how close you are and how good it is. You've got no one that can build in front of you and build up that view. It's like a one-of-one site. Like if you were, a few blocks back and, people can obstruct that view, or you get built out, it gets noisy, but you're never going to have a neighbour to your right in front of you. You've looked after the guys behind. You're on a corner block, so you're really only touching two neighbours. Yeah,
it was the start of a big thing for us because we realised that it's kind of like the McDonald's guy. He said, I buy property and land bank it, and McDonald's is just a thing that we use to generate enough income to have that property in a good area. And for me, I was like, this could be the start of something big which ended up being something big with the Bunker Escapes brand. But it meant that I could feed my addiction for architecture. Like I just love high-end architecture, and doing property developments like duplexes and townhouses was great, but I wasn't able to push things to the limit because I was always bound by overcapitalizing. Where this, you can kind of build and spend as much as you want because you'll get it back in an asset that can't be built out. You're hanging over the ocean we're so close to the ocean on such a beautiful place near Sydney. It was a thing that I was like, well, if we can keep doing this, and if I can create a product that's good enough that people will want to come from around the world and stay at my venue, the repayments that I'll be getting off that will suffice spending this amount of money and having a huge loan or whatever I needed to do to do that. And since this started, we've done 4 others, and it's going
built out. Look, I want to touch on the build out of the Bunker brand, and obviously you're flying in from Byron, and you just finished up there, like banks and stuff. Crazy. I'm a concrete lover myself, so I feel like we could turn this into a half-day chat. But you obviously always weren't in the position to buy and spend $1.7 million on a vacant block of land. Neil Hipwell coming out of high school and finding his feet in the trade. What was that like? What was that journey for you? And was it always you wanted to be a builder, or is there a career that died first to get you where you are today?
There was a career that died first. I was severely ADD and dyslexic at school, so it felt like a big slingshot. Like I was always pulled back, but I was like, my dad's an athlete. I was heavily into athletics when I was young, and I trained every day. I was extremely ambitious and hungry to make it to the Olympics, to play first grade football. And I would train day and night to get what I wanted out of that.
Football
Rugby league, yeah.
Rugby league, okay.
Yeah. And I did well. I made it to some pretty good milestones in my career, but I got to 14, I think it was, and I started work experience. I did work experience with a local builder, and when I got on a job site, it was the same feeling as when I'd run onto a football field or, throw a javelin or a discus or whatever at athletics, and I felt like I'm like, fuck, I just know how to do this stuff. I can see someone do that and understand it, and I get what everyone's doing. Like, I get why they're doing that. It just all made sense to me, and I was like, I just feel so at home here. Like, this is what I love doing, and obviously the physical aspect to it as well. Like, the builder that I was doing work experience with said, "Can you dig the footings? Like, I've got nothing for you. Just start digging those footings." And I was like, "What have I got to do? Show me where I've got to dig." And he's like, "You got to dig all this, about 15 tons of digging." I was like, "I'm going to get it done today." And I just ripped in, and by 6 o'clock at night, I dug all the footings, and I loved it. I enjoyed it. I was sweating. I was like, this is like a workout, but I wasn't getting paid at the time, but I knew I eventually would.
Yeah. So
I just had that same thing that I've always had, that ambition for sport and to wanting to be the best at sport. It all just at that moment transitioned into building and construction. And I basically just chased that from that day on. I didn't go back to school. I just stayed doing work experience. I had to go back and do some tests and certificates and stuff like that.
Tick the boxes.
But I actually didn't. I just went back for the test. I didn't go into class. I spoke to my year advisor at the time. I was 14, and I said, I love doing this. I don't want to leave. I hate school. I get kicked out of every class anyway.
Like, did they
she actually encouraged it. She said, "You know what? I'm happy for you, and I'm so glad to see that you've found something you really love. I personally shouldn't be saying this, but go and keep doing it. Don't come back to school." Because I was sitting outside the classroom I couldn't concentrate. I had ADD to the point where if you start talking about something I don't have interest in, I'm asleep. I just can't.
Yeah, which would be most stuff at school, right, these days.
Which was so horrible at school. Like, at the time, I was like, I'd come home upset every day from school because I'm like, I just have so much to give, and I feel like my brain has this creative capacity, but I could never ever put it on paper and achieve anything. Everything would just be low marks, fail everything. Yeah. And it wasn't until that realizing that I could build that it all changed for me. But yeah, that moment where the year advisor said, just keep doing building, come back and do your tests because you're probably going to need to get them done. Even if you fail, you're going to have them completed to do your carpentry. So I just went back for that, got that done and failed that, and still somehow got into carpentry.
What are your parents saying at this time? Are they trying to push you back towards school, or they realise the ADHD and they go, we see a little spark in the eye?
Yeah, my dad being an athlete, he was like, we've trained your whole life for this, for you to make it in footy or athletics. And at the time, for discus throwing, I was probably up there in Australia for discus. And he was sort of like, you've got what it takes to make it. And I was like, at the end of the day, I sat there and I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with throwing a discus? Like, I might be able to throw a rock or something if I ever need to do some hunting. But I'm like, there's no money in that. No one's paying. I wouldn't be able to name the best discus thrower in Australia. Like, who cares? And I got to the point where I was like, well, that's not going to make me money. Building is, and I love it just as much now. So I'm going to chase that. And my parents were always so supportive. They just said, whatever you want to do, we'll support it. And even the whole time through school when I was struggling, they were like, it doesn't matter. You're smart. We know you're smart. Don't let them get you down, kind of thing. So they never let that sort of, I guess, learning disability break my spirit. So yeah, they were supportive. They just said, do what you want to do. Wow. I don't even know if it's technically legal to do what I was doing. I think it was 14 and 9 months. So you're allowed to work, but I think you had to finish year 10 or something to
Look, we won't name the employee you got your first bit of work with, but
I need to thank that guy. He did me a massive favour to kind of trust and give a young kid that young a start. Like, no builders are doing that. They're not going to take the risk. He basically saw gold in me and supported that, and then he offered me a job, did my apprenticeship with him, and yeah, here we are today. How
long after doing that apprenticeship, like, you've got that sort of fight in you, you've got that, I can make it, building's the thing for me. How long until you realise that you need to go off on your own and do it yourself compared to work for someone?
I could have never, working for someone didn't really work for me because I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. And because I was so obsessed, like my boss wasn't obsessed. He was obsessed with skiing and surfing and lifestyle that the building company created for him.
Okay.
Where I was just obsessed with building, and I was borderline like autistic almost, in the sense that I would just I'd sit there at my whole lunch break and just watch bricklayers lay bricks. And then I'd go up to them on my lunch break and go, "Can I just lay a couple? Can you just let me lay a couple? Like, I'll give you some of my hot chips." And they're like, "Fuck, these kids are weirdo," like whatever. And I would lay bricks and do things like, and I'd want to learn how to tile. I'd want to learn how to lay bricks. I want to learn how to weld. My whole apprenticeship, I was just obsessed with what I did. Yeah. So yeah, because I was so obsessed with the trade and what I did, I knew that I couldn't work for someone. It was just, my boss would tell me to do this and I'd go off and do that. And I would be annoying the shit out of him because he'd be like, "We've got a pour tomorrow. We need to get this done. And why are you over there hanging doors? Like, we're not doing that." I was terrible as an employee, but as a boss, I was great because I had my vision, and my vision was to go 100 miles an hour, get this thing done quick, create this thing faster than anyone. And I was always reinventing the way construction is happening, and I'd look at construction from a whole different perspective, because I guess my learning disability I would see as a superpower, in the sense that I was hyper focused on something and I was obsessed with something at a level that no one else was, and I could go, "There's a quicker way to do this, there's a better way to do, there's better materials to use for that I've looked into it, and we can do this quicker if we use this and this." So things like that. I was at 18, I was like, I've got to start my own thing, I've got to do it my way, and I just backed myself from 18 and went for it. Yeah.
How do you establish yourself in a was this Sutherland Shire when you started out and started the first couple of projects?
So I finished my apprenticeship. So I started at 14, finished at 18. 18 I started Future Flip. I forget what year that was now.
Wow, 18.
Yeah, 18, yeah. Started just doing anything that anyone would let me do. Decks, pergolas, hang a gate, fix something, whatever I would get my hands on, even landscaping stuff. I was just taking everything. Then I sort of realised that there was a massive demand for developers needing carpenters and trades come in and pump out their jobs and finish them. And because of my kind of sporting background, I was in a lot of football teams, and everyone that was physical and in sport ended up being a carpenter of some sort, a trade of some sort. So I had a good network of mates that I could say, "Come and work with me. We're going to get this done or that done for some developers and builders." So I ended up having a team of about 15 chippies working with me.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was at 19. I got a crew, and I was just doing frames for builders and developers. Whatever they needed, I would just come in and do the carpentry aspect. And it wasn't my goal focus of business at all, but it was a way of creating a team. So when I'd get the renovation jobs, I could pull that huge team off and just pump out a renovation 10 times quicker than everyone else, because I had a team bigger than everyone else of young chippies that are hungry to work, 12-hour days and get things done. And at the time, it was GFC, so there was not much work around, and people that were working hard and pushing harder and charging less were getting all the work. So for me, I was charging out at about $50 an hour for myself, my guys, paying them 45 or whatever it was, making a little tiny clip on top. But at the time, the guys, the builders that had been there for 8, they needed 65 an hour to cover costs. So they're like, "We can't compete with this young guy. Like, he's coming in with 10 chippies and just getting them done so quick." And I created a niche in that dead market, really, and created a company that had good staff, because no one had work for the good staff, and I held all those good staff, and some of those guys I still have today.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What was do you remember your first full build? Like, if it was at a house, was it a town, a duplex?
I did a lot of owner-builder stuff. So not me personally, I'd work for clients that thought they could build, and they wanted to do a lot themselves, but they needed a chippy to come and do the majority of the work. So,
sounds like a headache.
Because you can't get home warranty insurance, and you can't get a builder's license straight up. And because I hadn't finished my year 12, I wasn't able to do my builder's license in conjunction with my carpentry. I had to wait till at least I finished TAFE, third year, and then I started my builder's license, and that took 2 years. So it wasn't until I was 19 that I actually was a licensed builder. And then it still took a little while to get enough cash together to back myself to be insured with home warranty insurance. So it was sort of like, by the time I was 20, I was fully licensed, fully insured to build houses for people. And then as soon as I had that, I was mainly doing top floor additions, and waterfront renovations and things like that. And I kind of developed this, like whatever I was doing, I'd get so obsessed with it. And I would go, oh, there's a quicker way to do this, a better way to do this. And I got really fast at top floor additions. And I ended up getting to the point where I turned mine out in about 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
6 weeks from demo, put the scaffold up, demo, get the frame up within a week, have it locked up within 2 weeks. The gyprock had started within sort of 4 weeks of construction. Tyler, everyone was on site together, and I'd have this little system that was commercially ran effectively, where I would pick apart from all the developers I'd go and work with that were doing 300 units, and I was there hanging the doors for them. I noticed how they built, and I was like, they haven't even poured the level above, and they're already hanging doors below here. Like, they're just so full on with the speed, but it all worked how they were doing it. And I basically stole that method of commercial construction, and I brought it into residential. And my job sites would normally have, the whole road would just be full of tradies, the utes parked all the way down the road. I had 30 guys on a little top floor addition job, the sparky, the plumber, everyone would be all there together, and we'd just pump it out so quick, and effectively doing exactly the same amount of labour work, but just loading up the site commercially. So I developed that system, top floor additions. That's where, because you're at risk. As soon as you rip a roof off,
you got to be quick.
You got to be quick. You got to get it all done. You got to lock it up. You got to get the weather out as quick as you can. And that's where I made a lot of money. I did that for a lot of years, just pumping them out so quick. Had three.
What would that cost back in the day to add a top floor? Like, is that 200-300 grand? Or?
Yeah, majority are around the 200. I was doing like a 4-bedroom top floor addition for 100. And I remember I did one for 120 grand. I lost money,
but great for the owner.
The client was just like, he would have had quotes at $500,000 for what I was doing, and I just had no idea. And I was like, well, I'll just have to learn the hard way. And I did learn the hard way. I probably lost 50 grand on that job. But from that point on, I started to develop all my historic data of pricing, and I knew exactly what it cost me to build things. And I didn't really care what the market was charging, because I was like, I'm just running my own race. And if I can build it for that and make 20 grand, I'm happy with that. I just want to get my name out there. And that's pretty much how Future Flip became what it is, because people in the area would see a top floor addition get built in 6 weeks and go, how the hell is this guy doing this? Like, that was so quick. And the clients were happy, the design looked good, it was finished well. It was just free marketing for that area. So I just got really, really busy, built my company off the back of all that. And
are you on socials at this time, or word of mouth?
I started socials. Top floor edition days, I wasn't really. And then I did a few waterfront renos and started doing the socials. It wasn't until the whole duplex land came about, like when the property market started to go up, the GFC is over, I think it was about 2010, that we started to get a little bit of a release on the downward spiral with the market. And then a few clients started hitting me up to do duplexes, and I said, well, I could do that pretty easily. And they were around the 800 grand mark. That was my price point back then to build. So 400 aside to build a pretty nice 4-bedroom duplex.
Decent.
Yeah. And I started that, liked doing that, and then did the same thing that I've kind of always done and just hyper-focused on that niche and got really good at it, got the systems better, really worked out the best system for the party wall, for the noise transmission, for the structure and the best way to build it. Because effectively a duplex is a rectangle. It's as easy as it gets. It's so much easier than doing top floor additions. Top floor additions had, an old structure that could have termites. It was not straight. It wasn't plumb. Wasn't level. And I had to adjust everything to put a straight level plumb product on site below. So there was a lot of work involved in that, and I had to be there to supervise that procedure. Where with new builds, if the design is analysed properly and you've got a good design, the structure's been analysed and it's easy to construct, you're building 2 rectangles. Like, you can swing the cat a few different ways, but the garage is normally at the front. You've got maybe a spare living space, downstairs, or a second multifunction, or a bedroom. Bedrooms upstairs. It's pretty much the same thing on repeat. So I could create a bit of a sausage factory there, where I just keep doing the same thing and getting better and better at it, and getting quicker and quicker and quicker every time.
Because you were pumping these out in, wasn't it 14 or 16 weeks back in the day?
Yeah, so that was my marketing.
Yeah, that was your marketing. I remember.
Yeah. Which was fine at the time because I didn't have kids. I was just so obsessed with what I did. I could work 80 hours a week and I wouldn't get tired. I'd get energized by it and I'd get excited by, I did that one a week quicker than the last one. I can do it quicker and quicker and quicker. And I got to a point where I did one in 12 weeks. We actually did a film. And that's where my whole Instagram kind of started, really. Like, I was putting some posts up. I didn't have many followers. People were like interested in what I did, but it wasn't really a big deal until I did that. It was called 2 in 12, where it was with Catherine from the stable. She's an interior designer. It was her house. Obviously wanted to knock down, create a duplex. And we just came up with the idea, let's just do it in, I'm already doing them in 16 weeks. I reckon I could do it in 12. So we designed it in a way that I knew I could build it really efficiently. And we built it in 12 weeks and we did a mini series on it. And I got a ton of followers from that. People were so fascinated. It got a lot of views. It got sent around a lot. And then after that build, I probably had 20,000 followers.
Wow.
From maybe starting at 5.
Yeah.
And then that sort of just kicked off from there. Then I started to get sponsors and brands would come to me, and make me an ambassador of different things. And
sorry to cut you off. What were some of those efficiencies that you pick up, or that that you still see people get wrong in today's market in terms of just like construction or design?
Yeah, the main part of building efficiently is the materials used and obviously the structure and how you build the structure and loading points, and obviously bathrooms, loading on top of bathrooms for plumbing access and stack points. But analysing the design and making sure, like that particular duplex, we didn't have one piece of steel on the whole thing. Like, we just did it all in timber, all in a way that the load points landed, we didn't have a big garage beam hard over the top of a garage door or an opening where you had to add another beam and 2 posts and things like that.
Yeah.
So I just went through and eliminated all of those load points and I simplified the structure. I worked out an axon cladding board is, I can buy it at 3 meters. So make sure the walls aren't higher than 3 meters. I didn't need to cut a single board. I just chucked it all on suit boards, cut out the windows, cladded the whole house in 3 days. Like things like that, as opposed to laying bricks, doing double brick and all of the slow trades. I got rid of all of the wet trades and bought a product that was pre-primed, ready to paint, throw it up quick. I can have 10 chippies on this side, 10 chippies on that side, and just load up the site with carpentry basically and do the whole thing in timber and lightweight. And being a carpenter by trade, I was able to manage 20 chippies pretty well.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you do that? Because that's...
I love it. I've always
any
loved
tips
my
for
craft.
people, young site guys that listen to this and, struggling?
Yeah. I don't know if my advice is the right advice because everyone's so different. I think that's probably the best advice is find out what you're good at and what drives you and what makes you excited and do that, and don't try and do what someone else is doing. Because for me, working 80 hours a week and having 20 guys on site, like that's a recipe for disaster. For most people,
yeah.
I thrive on it, but a lot of people wouldn't. But I loved it. I'd go around, I'd get everyone set up properly. I'd make sure they got the most efficient, tool system set up. Like, the drop saw's not at the back of the site; it's right next to where they're working, and they've got battery tools and all their batteries are on chart. I would be just every little thing for efficiency, even down to the smoker water. I would make them before they get to site and say, get your smoker water ready, write it down, whatever.
Your
I
what?
want. The smoker order, lunch order.
Oh, lunch order, smoker order, okay.
Because you can't have 20 chippies all going different ways for lunch and they come back an hour later and you just lose too much time.
Wait, so you're coordinating their smoko list of what they want?
Yeah, and getting the shop down the road, I'd pre-order, everything would be there. The apprentice would go, he'd pick up the lunch, everything. Within 3 minutes, the apprentice is back on site.
Wow. Yeah. Man, that level of detail is incredible.
When you've got that many people on site, every single minute counts. The way they set their tools up, the way where they put them, and is it going to obstruct the next person coming, and foreseeing the whole thing. I'd be up at 4 a.m. and I'd play the whole day out in my head. And when the workers would get to site half asleep, I would be already like so far ahead of what was happening and kind of help them get set up and get going. But yeah, I guess that's how that whole 12-week builds came about from I guess changing the structure to a structure that worked really well for me. and things that I could control within my, I guess, skill set. And yeah, we did that, and I ended up building well over 100 duplexes. In that time frame. Yeah,
it's been phenomenal. What are your thoughts on? Obviously, you get this quick, this good, and you get the traction. Your business is building. People that are copying your designs and copying your work. How do you approach that, or what are your thoughts on it?
I don't really care. I've never looked sideways. I've had so many times during my career where people are like, oh, your ex-employee's just done a replica company of yours. He's copied all your stuff. He's taken all your trades. And I just say good luck to him. I know he won't work as hard as me. I know for a fact he can't do what I can do, and that'll eventually fail. And I don't really care. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm staying in my lane. Good luck to him. I hope he does well. Yeah. And that's always been my ethos for business. It's like, if you get caught up on, oh, he stole this or he stole that from me, I'm going to go after him or that and waste my mental capacity on things that don't matter. I don't see anyone winning in life doing that. Like, you look at all of the successful athletes and anyone in business that's killing it, they're not worried about what their competitors are doing. That's always been my way of looking at it.
Man, that is that is not only a mature approach, but I think that is really good point. Mental capacity to pursue and worry about them takes your mind off you coordinating your day.
And you think about a duplex, like, you could say my designs have copied other architects as well. Like, it's a rectangle. Like, there's not too much you can do. Like, I'm not that worried. Like, there's been stuff that's like dead set. Like,
copy and paste.
They've gone on the DA tracker. They've pulled my plans off. They've got a cheap drafty to redraw them, and they've tried to replicate it, and it looks very similar. Whatever. Like, there's not the important thing for me is just continually being at the forefront with design. Mm-hmm. And hopefully I'm a couple of years ahead of everyone else, and I'm creating products that are more cutting edge, they're more innovative, and the designs are looking a lot better. And as long as I'm ahead, then in a couple of years' time, I'm sure they'll replicate and copy my designs, but it doesn't matter to me.
It's too late already.
Yeah.
Is there, apart from 2 in 12, is there any other projects that sort of stand out in terms of like put you on the map or were really successful? Or
I did my own duplex in 2011. And that was a massive duplex in a really odd shape. That wasn't a rectangle. That was triangles and all sorts of shape, massive, big 12-meter lap pools. And I went completely skits on that to put myself on the map for design, because I knew, for me, design was the hardest thing to break, because I was a builder. I'm not an architect. I never went to uni. I would never even qualify to go to uni for anything. Yeah. But I chose design as my focus, and which is so weird that other builders don't, because if you're putting something together, if you're baking the cake, you need to know what you're putting in it and how you're doing it. And you can never really get better as a builder if you don't control the design, because the design is the product. So I really focused on that, and I wanted clients to come to me for design as opposed to going to an architect every time and saying, here's the plans, build those plans. So I knew the only way to do that was to do a really good design that was a bit of a showstopper. And people would be like, wow, that is so much different and better than everything else is on the market. And it had all like...
What was the project? So run us through. Do you remember?
It was in Oyster Bay. It was next door to my parents' house. It was my house. So I bought the block when I was 19, I think. I bought the block for about 500 grand or 550 grand, I think it was. Just somehow scraped every bit I had just to buy it. And then I didn't have enough money to build on it for a couple of years, so I had to go and save up to build. I think it took me 2 or 3 years to save up enough cash to actually do the duplex. Wow. Design the duplex. Had a few hurdles with council. I struggled because I had no experience really in dealing with council. And my reaction to them coming back with RFI was just to argue with them and go, you're wrong. This looks good. Like, how are you doing? And I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. Learned so much from that process. I was going to say. I actually got refused with the DA, and then...
Really?
Yeah, I got knocked back. And then I was just like gutted, and then I had to kind of pick myself off the floor, go again, redesign, and I eventually got it approved. And what I got approved was incredible for that site. I ended up selling the finished product at the time.
So wait, 550 you're in, you may be in at 6 or 650 with DA costs and holding costs.
Yeah. and I did not spend much on the build. I did every single thing myself.
Yeah.
Put every single bit of timber in myself with my cheapest apprentices. I didn't even let my tradies come on site because I just I need to build this. I didn't have enough money to build it. I was scraping the barrel.
Yeah.
I think even the last 50 grand, I think I had to borrow off my brother because I just couldn't quite finish it properly. Anyway, I sold that product for about I think it was about 1.3 a side. So I came out of it with about 2.6 million.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And at the time, like nothing had, even a brand new full scale house at the time hadn't sold for near that sort of number. It broke the record by about 500-600 grand in that area.
Wow.
Because Oyster Bay is still a cheap area. It's not that expensive for a Sydney area. And yeah, I kind of made a decent chunk of profit off that. And then I moved in it was Swan, which is one that definitely put me on the map for high-end architecture. That was I guess our family home, the dream home, the forever home.
Was that the one you just shared to your story recently? Yeah, the concrete and timber.
Yeah, so that was basically all that hard work. I thought I came to that pivotal moment in my life where this was it. I'm going to build the forever home. We're going to live here forever. It's going to have everything I ever dreamed of, and all my hard work's come down to this house.
Oh no! Okay. Yeah.
And I built it, and it was epic. Like I had, I think 5 years in the house. That was before my son was born. My firstborn son was there, and then our daughter was born there. It was a beautiful memory, that house, and I had, some great times. But I realised it was about the time Bunker, I bought this site, that I realised I'm sitting on too much equity. I can't use it. I'm sitting on it. I'm living in
the PPR. Yeah.
It was just like, and then it kind of capped me from heaps of other developments, building things like this. And I said, stuff it. I'm just going to sell this. I'm going to rent for a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm going to use that cash to go and do a few more developments to get my, cash back up. Mm-hmm. And that was a good decision at the time. Although it was hard, we were crying watching that get sold. Yeah. But I look back now and I speak to the owner that lives there. He's got beautiful memories. He's raising his family there, and it's just like it's an epic house. So they were probably the pivotal houses for me. The one at Oyster Bay, the duplex. Then moving on to Swan Street for my own personal house. From there, I built 2 pretty high-end products and designed them all. And are
you designing them yourself, or are you hiring someone on your team?
At that time, I was hand drawing everything and paying whatever draftsman I could get to put it on paper, which was a punish. But the draftsman
for the drafty.
Yeah, well, he was
up your sketches.
He was charging me about $45 an hour.
Okay.
To draw whatever I told him, and I'd sit in his little office in his house and tell him everything I wanted drawn.
Yeah.
And it ended up costing me about $2,000 for a drawing to be complete. But at the time, I had no other option. I couldn't afford an architect and all those things. And then I moved on to working in with architects and sort of guiding them on how I wanted it done. Mm-hmm. I'd still hand sketch a lot of it and say, like, this is what I'm thinking. That's the layout. That's the elevations. And then they would amalgamate what I put forward and come up with something from that. But and then it sort of moved into bringing in my own architects and employing my own in-house architects. Mm-hmm. Which was obviously costly and a massive commitment because I had to, cover a couple $100,000 of wages in the architect room, and I had to say goodbye to all the architects that were previously feeding me work. Yeah, it was a big jump.
When does that comes late 2010s kind of decision, or coming up to 2020, or when do you build out and get that full team?
The architects came on board in about 2012.
Okay. Oh shit, earlier. Yep.
Yeah, that was just like, 1 or 2 designers. They were just, uni grads on, $80,000 a year or around that sort of figure. And then it kind of progressed as that duplex market just started ramping up for me. And as I had those, Swan and that starting to kind of show what I could do, there was a lot of people coming to me, and I was charging $10,000 to do a design for a duplex, which I would lose money. Like I would probably lose $5,000 on every design, but it was getting the work in. So I could be the designer, I could guarantee to the client I can build it for that number, and they would come to me and say, we've got $1 million to spend, here's the $10,000, design my duplex, get it approved. And I would have a very simple process for them, and I'd build fairly simple duplexes. They looked decent, nothing like I'm building now, but it was a cost-effective option that we were providing, and it worked really well, especially through that ramp up and that building boom. And I kind of kept doing that market almost, I would say right up until COVID, to be honest.
Yeah, well, talk to us about that, because obviously that changed a lot of things in construction. You know, everything from getting shipping containers and materials out of China, labour, no one coming in, all that kind of stuff. How did you go with your business and what happened there?
That was when this house was built, though. This was 2020. I dug the footings, and I remember COVID was announced, or they announced it being a bit of a big deal. I think it was like February of 2020 or whatever it was. And that was when I was building this. And it was the best thing ever, because all of the trades were like, oh no, we're not going to have any work on. We'll work at a better price. Let's do a deal. I just want the job. And every trade was dropping their rates. And I was locking people into all my jobs at a really good rate.
This was at the part of COVID where there was all that unknown and no one... Okay.
Yeah, it was at the unknown stage. So that worked really well, and everything was fine. The first half of COVID, I was also thinking that there wouldn't be enough work for my company. So I was trying to sign jobs and trying to sign things at a cheaper rate. I had no idea about the whole material shortage and what might happen. And I signed probably about 10 mil of work in that sort of short period. Maybe in about 6 months, I signed about 10 to $15 million worth of projects. It was everything I've always done is a fixed price. I never did cost plus ever.
Yeah.
So I was locking in duplexes at $1.2 million build cost. But luckily I built quite fast. But even still, my whole system slowed right down, and I was like, instead of 16 weeks, it moved to 20 weeks. And in that sort of extra couple of weeks is when all the materials went missing. Well, the boat turned around and they didn't give us our timber that was coming to the country. And I had jobs sitting there for 2 months with no timber. And there was a lot of shortages on so many things. And then when the timber came, it was triple the price. And it just went, I was paying $2.50 a metre for timber, and it went up to $7.50. Like, you can't... And the price of the build, every single one of those jobs... I lost money, at least $100,000 on every job.
So you finished the job but lost the money? Or like, how do you approach that with the client, right?
Well, there's nothing I could do because I'd signed the contract.
I know, but like, there's no conversation around.
There was nothing. I was apologetic for the situation because it took longer than I was promising the client. And it was more of an ego hit for me, because I used to get, like, everyone would be like, how do you do it so quick? You're always so efficient. How do you run a company that's just so well oiled? Like, surely you've got issues, and it doesn't seem like you have the issues everyone else has. And I had that ego hit because my site's sitting there and the grass is growing up over the slab, and I'm like, I can't get the timber on site. This is killing me. But yeah, the clients, I guess, came out on top because it took a bit longer, but in that period, because most of them were developers trying to sell. So instead of being done in 6 months from start to finish and handed over, it ended up blowing out to like 10 months, sometimes even 12 months. But in that time, the property market just went skits. Like, it was like nothing I've ever seen before. It was the biggest property growth we've ever, or not ever, but in a very long time.
Yeah, everyone thought it was going to go the other way.
Yeah, like the media was pumping it the other way. And my saving grace in that whole period was I was buying property. I bought...
Why, but? Everyone's scared. The media's telling you.
Like, I wasn't the sort of person that gets scared easy for media stuff. And I've always sort of known the media kind of portray their own narrative, and it's guiding you in a different direction. And so, yeah, they were saying on the media there's going to be a 40% housing, a drop in the market. And as I was saying that, I was watching the fire sales start to happen, and I was getting the calls off the agents, and the agents are like, just make an offer, whatever you want. And then I picked up a site in Waverley that was...
Oh, I know this one. Near the prom school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Across the road from Waverley.
You got that for a steal, man. I did the numbers on that project, and I was just there like... Because I saw we bought it. And
I would have made $6 million on that.
That is...
Yeah.
That is so crazy.
But it was... they were ringing every builder developer. They wanted this thing sold. Every builder said, nah, the property market's crashing. We're not going to buy. At the time, I'm looking at all my jobs going, my jobs are costing more. I'm losing money. It's probably not the right time to buy, but I just feel that it is the right time, and I just went for it. It was a boarding house. I think it was a 14-room boarding house in Waverley, across from the college. And they had like squatters and junkies living in there. It was horrific. Like the the state of it was
It was
horrible.
a decent sized site though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a big site.
Because it sort of like kicked a
Yeah, it
little
was
bit in
a
the
kinked,
backyard.
weird site. It was tricky, but yeah. Anyway, long story short, I bought it. I knocked the
What did it give us numbers?
bought it for 3.6.
Any
Anyway.
freestanding house in the east for 3.6 is huge.
Oh, a huge block. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knocked it down. I subdivided and built 2 luxury houses, and each house sold for 6.25. So
Wow.
12.5 million off a purchase at 3.5.
I mean, and you're probably building them for what, 2 mil each or less, or you can't say?
I don't want to say too much, but
Yeah.
not much.
Yeah, okay.
It was a good time the building costs were going up then, but they're nothing like they were now. It didn't cost me a crazy amount of money. It was all lightweight construction. There was the garage section was a slab, but the rest of the house was all lightweight.
Yeah.
You know, James Hardy cladding, pretty standard to what I always do. We tricked up the interiors a little bit and did some nice joinery similar to here, and did some things like that to get that resale.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a pretty epic development, and all of the losses that I had on my client builds.
You made up back there.
Oh, I made up.
And some.
Well, that was just one of the properties I bought. So,
Is there any other big projects like that?
Yeah, I bought my factory at that time.
Mhm.
Bought my factory.
Or your Kangaroo one?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I bought that for around the 2 mil mark, and I just got the neighbour just bought it for 3.6 million.
The neighbour bought it?
Yeah, they've just bought my factory. Yeah.
So are you moving out? Or are you...
Yeah. We've got a lease at an office. Yeah, so we're setting up a new office.
Okay.
So that was another win. Like I did a bit of a reno to that, but not really crazy.
I mean, it's a
significant.
factory, right? So there's not too much to it.
Yeah, so those two combined, like the uplift, and then the properties that I was building at the time, I was doing developments as well.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't necessarily buy them. It was a bit before COVID, but they all uplifted as well.
Yeah.
And all the rentals went up, everything went up, and I had a lot of property that I'd held that I continued to hold up through that time, and sold a few in the peak of the market. So, yeah, I guess sometimes what you think is a bad thing isn't always bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's that Warren Buffett quote where it's like, be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy. Yeah. Everyone's going into their shells.
It's so true. It's so true. And that's one thing, I guess, I don't know, I guess my parents raised me to be brave. And being brave, like when you're a kid, you know, dropping in on a skate ramp or going out in the surf when it's big and doing all those things that you teach your kids when they're young. It's crazy how they come in life where you're like, you need to stand up and be brave now. You need to put your hand up at that auction and be the highest bidder. And that has worked so well for me. So I think that's one piece of advice I would say to anyone that's kind of raising kids, make them brave. Because in business, you need to be. And when everyone's saying there's a pandemic, it's the world's ending, you kind of have to go, no, it's not. Let's go harder. And that's
put your sort of blinkers on and be charging towards
and
that
I mean,
goal.
it's definitely not always going to work. I'm being very lucky that it's worked out for me every time I've gone left when everyone's going right. It's worked for me, but I guess if you don't say yes to those sort of things and put your hand up for those things, later in life you might be kicking yourself.
I mean, that's true, and you gave it a shot. It's interesting to see because I mean, it was all doom and gloom in the media, but you know, now that we're a few years out of this pandemic, this issue, you hear a lot of these stories where a lot of people did very well out of it. You know, businesses were made, money was made, especially in the property industry. That would have been in around COVID, you're finishing this build. Then the transition for it to be like this luxury rental, the Bunker brand, Jimmy Doo, we've got, you know, Byron Bay, Banks and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Does that then funnel off this and that sort of cash injection in the business?
So the timing worked incredibly well for me because there was so many trades hungry for the work. I was able to complete the build really fast. We built this in 9 months. It's all concrete, so it takes time. You got the cure time and everything, but we built it in 9 months. It was finished when there was still lockdown. So I lived here while there was lockdown. So it was basically I kept building, finished it. I moved into the house. We built. We completed it. I forget what the timing was. I think it was about 4 months, and that helped me get all the styling dialed in and get everything finished off and get everything nice and ready. We started getting all the images ready and kind of Airbnb set up so that as soon as they release it, you know, that we can travel again and people can move around Australia, we'll be ready to go. So as soon as that happened, we started getting bookings like you wouldn't believe.
How did you figure out pricing though? Because this is pretty.
There's a few nice ones around here, and we kind of said, we can sleep 22 people, like they can't, and we just kind of picked our number and plucked the number, and we said, let's just adjust it as it goes. Mm-hmm. And we actually went in too cheap. Like we were thinking, we were around the $3,000 a night mark when we launched it, and I was thinking, oh, that's a lot of coin. But then when you split it up between 20 people, it's not a lot of coin. It's actually pretty cost effective. And if you're down here for a wedding, like a lot of people get married down here.
Oh, true.
And you got like the bridal party, the grooms, like you've got a big house that you can, instead of having 6 different houses, you can all stay here, and there's room for everyone, and everyone kind of chips in a little bit, and they're chucking in a couple $100 each. It's not expensive for big groups. So that's what we targeted, and it worked really well. The first 2 weeks that we launched online,
I remember,
I think we made about $500,000 of sales.
$500,000 of sales?
Yeah, we booked $500,000.
How far out is that in terms of booking time?
Oh, most of the year. Most of the year got
in the
booked.
first 2 weeks?
First 2 weeks, yeah. And that was off the back of we pumped it on Instagram. Like that was back when I was really on Instagram a lot.
Yeah, you guys have like, and what Future Flip I think has done well on Instagram is really refine, and like I meet so many people that do such great work in property, but for whatever reason they just don't post it, they don't get it up online. Yeah. No one knows. Like you guys have that really nice brand now where it's like the marketing and the visuals is half of it for everything.
Well, it's so important for anyone that is passionate about what they do and good at what they do. You have to show people. You have to get in front of a camera. I hate getting in front of a camera. I don't like doing any of that stuff. Yeah. But I love what I do, and I need people to see it. So I was always making an effort to show everyone, and even just the in-depth tips and tricks and knowledge that I have, I'd like to share with other people and show people how I do things, and kind of
you used to do that a lot more. Like when you're on site, you're like, oh, we cladded it this way, and you used to like pull apart the
systems,
systems that you
which I'm still really passionate about. I think for the last 2 years, have been too time poor to keep up to that consistency with the social media, and I'm definitely getting to the point now. All my kids are at school, so I've got 3 kids at school now, which is crazy. I can't believe how fast that went. So now I do have that period of time where I'm not feeling guilty that I'm not, taking my kids swimming and all that stuff. So the social media part and the marketing and the working on my business part is coming back into play again, and you'll see a lot more of that sort of stuff. And I'm really keen to give back to this industry because it's given so much to me and my family, and teaching our young generation of better ways to build so that Australia has really nice houses that are going to stand the test of time. That's something I'm pretty keen to be a part of.
Yeah, because I mean, it's my issue is the cookie cutter houses that are getting built these days on like 250, 300 square meter blocks. The eaves are almost touching, your neighbour's house, and it's just like it's copy and paste stuff.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's a lot of issues in the industry, and I think we could talk about them for days. There's a lot of change, as you know. The new mid-rise code got released last week. Yep. Which is going to change a lot of areas.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of it is a very good move. That we've got a proper housing crisis. Developers just don't want to build at the moment. And I think people forget they misunderstand the issue with the housing crisis. They think there's a housing crisis and people don't have enough houses, which there is, but it's because people like myself don't see the value in developing. So the houses come from the developers developing, and because they don't stack up and the council aren't approving things quick enough, or they're not getting the right returns because they can't put enough GFA of house on that block of land, and the build cost is too high, it hasn't stacked up. But now they've released, I can't remember, I think it's 180 areas within mainly Sydney and all of New South Wales, where there's a zone, 800 metre zone, where you can build pretty large amount of structure. So I think the GFA is 2.2 to 1, 22 metres high, so 8 apartments or 6 apartments on a pretty small block. Minimum lot size has dropped right down, and it's all through CDC. You can do it without council, and they've privatised a lot of it. A lot of it outside of that area has changed as well, but you still need to go and involve council in that process, and that's going to be the issue, because council are now going to get more busy than they've ever been, and anyone that has lodged a DA lately would know.
Yeah, we know this. Yeah.
It takes too long, and by the time you get the approval, the building costs has gone up even more, and it's not stacking up.
What do you reckon the best opportunities are now for these new housing reforms that are coming in?
Well, at the moment, I mean, they released the data yesterday, so the information I can see is the best options are within that 800 metre zone of the town centre, and you can do 17.5 to 22 metre high buildings. Now that's well and good in areas that stack up. So if they're in an area that the property market's average price is under $1 million, it doesn't really stack up because the building costs so high to build a class 2 building like that. The per unit price to construct doesn't equate to the best resale. So I think you'll see a lot of people are expecting this to really fix the housing crisis, but it is going to fix it in areas like Bondi, eastern suburbs, Coogee, Maroubra, that sort of more affluent areas, because the developers can see a return on investment doing that. But when you go further out west where the resale isn't there, I don't see it fixing the problem, and that's sort of where the problem is needing to be fixed more, I think, rather than those congested areas. So I think that'll be an issue, but also a lot of money can be made out of that sort of stuff. The duplex market will pick right back up again because the minimum lot size has reduced for the duplexes, and the GFA, the floor space, has increased, and the height has increased to 9.5 metres. Okay. So you can build a bigger, better duplex under CDC, and also you can, in most cases, you're still going to have to go through the DA route, but the options of what you can do have become a lot better for a lot of areas. So it's just unlocked a lot of potential areas.
Yeah, perfect.
So if you're in those areas, then you're winning right now. You've just got a rezoning and your block's probably worth heaps more. And I'd probably go and chat to some people about designs and things like that if you are in those areas. If you're looking to develop, I would strongly recommend understanding the code and looking at those areas and buying in those areas, because the value wouldn't have increased because all the neighbours haven't sold yet.
Yeah.
So you've still got an opportunity to buy in pretty cheap.
There's I think a tight little window. I know some developer mates who were talking before that sort of got in and have been talking to landowners in those wealthier suburbs before this has sort of been in gazetted and public, knowledge. So, but yeah, even I think what you've done in your time frame and through literally duplexes and the small scale stuff, it is proof in the pudding that there is more than enough money to be made if it's done right and done well, and not always following what everyone else is doing. Before we sort of wrap up, one other project I want to talk to you about, which is really cool, is obviously what you guys have done at Byron. With the Bunker brand going up there, you've got banks and you sort of split that site. So how did that deal come about, and why Byron Bay? I mean, it's pretty obvious, but why Byron?
Well, look, to be honest, once we finished this and we had that, like I spoke about, that 2 week of just insane amount of money coming in with the bookings, we realised we were onto a winner, and we said, this is working, let's go again straight away. I was looking in Byron at that time. I wanted straight away to get a property in Byron as soon as this was finished. Wow. But the property prices were going up so fast there after COVID, we sort of couldn't really make it stack up. So I ended up buying a nearly 300 acre property in the Snowy Mountains, Krakenbach, because that was a bucket list thing for us as well. We wanted a Snowy Mountains lodge. We loved the snow. We love snowboarding. We wanted to make that happen. And it kind of, as we were looking at, big hinterland properties on the hills of Byron, we looked at the numbers. We're like, it's going to be $6 million for a site. I can get this site for 2.5 million potentially, and it's massive, and it's in an area that's so tightly held. I think there's probably only about 20 farms in Krakenbach that could ever be sold, that are proper farms. I'm talking like above 100 acres kind of thing. So we saw that as a bit of a great land banking opportunity and create another Airbnb there. So that's when we created Jimmy Doo. We bought that farm, created Jimmy Doo, renovated the existing house. Again, a really large venue where you can hold, up to 16 adults plus kids. 22 people can stay in that house. So that was that. And then it moved us to focus back in on Byron Bay. And to be honest, Crystal and I always wanted to end up in Byron Bay. She spent a lot of her childhood up there. She was born down south in Bega and then travelled around and did some schooling up in Byron when she was growing up. We got married in Byron, so it's sort of like a special place for us. We wanted to end up there. It was a great lifestyle and everything I basically loved about it, but my business was here in Sydney, so I thought it was impossible until COVID kind of made a lot of remote working possible. And my role in the business is very design heavy and marketing heavy, where I don't actually need to be on site like I used to be. My partner Mitch, he's the site guy. He's always checking on that sort of stuff. So it enabled me to go to Byron and create an amazing product up there on par with this product here in Gerringong. Bought the site and we straight away knew it was going to be Bunker Byron. But then we realised it was so big, the site.
How many squares are we talking?
It was 1,050 squares, but it's in the town, like it's in town. So that's a big site for Byron.
What's the price? What's the purchase price?
I spent just shy of 5 mil on it on the site. With stamp duty, it was about nearly 5 mil, or was 5 mil. And the auction, I think at the time the auction was guided at 3.2. That was the auction guide.
The good old real estate agents.
And me being insanely competitive, I just lost track of what I was bidding. I just kept putting my hand up, keep tapping the mouse. It was an online bid, sight unseen. It was a hoarder house. It had just crap everywhere. There was like 5 caravans, boats. There was a car engine on the kitchen bench. It was just disgusting what I bought, and I definitely overpaid at the time. Everyone in the town was like, "Why did that guy just pay that much for that crap site?" But I saw the value in the location being, 100 metres walk into the main town. You're at all the best restaurants and shops and the beach, the main beach. I knew that there was not too many other properties at that size, that close to town, available. So I spent the money. I did a really good design. I got a really good approval, constructed it pretty fast. And we released it. It went online November last year. And to be honest, it didn't go the way this went. It didn't go the same way. It was a different time in the market. We had that COVID rush where everyone in Sydney with money couldn't go to Europe. They couldn't go anywhere. They wanted luxury where they were allowed to travel. And this was the perfect option in Gerringong. So we got a lot of people from Sydney booking this. And they wanted to jump in quickly. They had the urgency because they're like, we haven't travelled in so long. We just want to go somewhere and have a good weekend away with our family and see all the people we haven't seen in a while. So this was the perfect option at that time. When we released Byron, we did not get that kind of traction. We made a couple of bookings and they kind of came in slowly. But by the time December hit, we were booked out for the whole school holidays period. And it was pretty insane. Like we had every venue, so Bunker Gerringong, Jimmy Doo, Banks at Byron, Bunker Byron, every venue booked out, averaging sort of 15 to 20 people in each house. So we're housing up to sort of 60 people a night in our venues, which a lot of people go, oh, it's just an Airbnb, it's a rental or whatever. I don't understand. It's a proper beast of a business. Like my wife is so busy running those, like keeping the stock take of everything that's there and buying new linen, getting new towels, getting it clean to the highest quality finish of every single changeover. It's a stressful job my wife does to run them. I didn't realise when I was creating them, I was actually creating a lot of work for her. She's busier than me now. But yeah, it's turned into an insanely successful business, and the money and the income off it is like a really good way for us to sort of see our future out in terms of retirement and things like that, making a passive income off a really good asset. And the best part for us is seeing people enjoy the products that I've created. Like we've literally been sitting in a cafe, hand sketching drawings, going, we could do this, we could do that, have a round pool here, we could have a sauna on the roof, we could do all these cool things. And you draw them on a napkin, you create them, and obviously I get to create them in-house with my team of architects, and then go and build them with my hands, and my wife styles them all up with her creative ability as well. And then to create the business and market the business and do the whole package, and then see guests stay there and have the best weekend of their life. And they write us these beautiful messages saying these memories of our kids doing this, or my grandma was her 80th birthday and we had this amazing party for her, and all these memories that are created at all 4 venues for us. it's a pretty epic way to see the architecture used, and it's definitely more rewarding than the duplexes I was doing. I mean, they made money and they created the option to do this Bunker Escapes brand, but they didn't get me going like the escape business does.
Yeah. So what's next? I got to ask.
So I mean, we're pretty content. Like, we're financially in a place where we don't need to go changing the world anymore. We're in a really comfortable position. We're going to build our own house, which it's been a long time since my family have lived in a house that, you know, they don't have suitcases under the bed, because we're moving to the next place next week. We're always hopping around, it's been fine. Like, we've lived in caravans, we've lived in tiny houses, we've lived in, you know, little 2-bedroom rentals. We definitely don't live a lavish life, and we don't need to. I don't really have lavish things. I don't wear lavish clothes, all those. I have no interest in all that stuff, and my wife is the same. For us, our passion is creating the product and other people using it. But our kids are getting to the age where they want to have friends over, they want to have pool parties, and yeah, the little blow-up pool out the back doesn't cut the mustard anymore. So we're going to build a proper house, which I'm calling the Forever House, for my family.
Take two.
Yeah. And I've also bought another big piece of land in Byron Bay where I'm going to do another potentially luxury escapes venue, or we might just do a really nice house and sell it. But yeah, we've got a site and we're going to go again up there. So the market up there went right up, came right back down, and it's a really good time to buy up there. It's kind of bottomed out, I feel. And there's just so much opportunity that the place is just always vibing. There's just always, you know, cool stuff happening, bands playing, things in that town. It's a really live town. So I think we're going to continue investing there, as well as down here. We're looking at a lot of sites with this new reform, with this new medium density code, and there's a lot of opportunity for future flip to do developments as well. So we're kind of partnering with clients, doing JVs, looking at sites. We're doing a lot of different things at the moment. So the future's looking pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's love to watch it and to be a part of it, and yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys do on the next Byron site. Neil, the way we usually wrap these things up is I ask for advice. I ask for one bit of advice that you've probably shared plenty for the audience, but is there a quote? Is there anything else that sticks to mind in terms of advice for anyone that sort of, you know, looks up to and admires what you've done and is looking to do the same thing? And then is there a quote you live your life by?
Back yourself. I've always backed myself and understood what I'm capable of. And I guess a piece of advice I would give to any young person is try and break past your comfort zone in any way you possibly can. For me, it was athletics and sport and running and everything I did in sport. I always, that time where you want to give up and you're just at breaking point, just run as hard as you possibly can till you literally break and physically break. And having that discipline and that ability to push past comfort zones has helped me so much in business, because business is hard. It is so hard. And challenges, especially with property development and all different challenges you face, having that resilience and knowing how capable you really are is so important. So I would invest into doing that in any way possible while you're young, to learn what your limits are, because your limits are always so much more than you actually think.
You've proven that. Well, look, Neil Hipwell, Future Flip, appreciate you coming on Everything Property Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.